Hello, here's a lesson about avoiding plagiarism. This slideshow is available on your Google slideshow for the week's lessons and assignments, so you can look at this later. I'm also going to recommend in certain places that you pause the video in order to complete part of an assignment. So the introduction is just about what is plagiarism. Suppose you were really good at jokes. You didn't just tell these jokes, you made them up yourself. Now imagine if one day you heard someone else telling your joke, but he never mentioned that it came from you. That's plagiarism. Plagiarism is borrowing someone else's words, ideas, or creation without giving them credit for it. So notice that this is not just that you're borrowing their words, you're copying and pasting their words, but just copying their ideas or creation can also be plagiarism. When you research a topic online, in a book, a magazine, or anywhere else, and you use the author's words or ideas in your own writing without giving that author credit, that's plagiarism. It's not good. Basically, it's cheating, and you should avoid doing it. The problem is a lot of students plagiarize without even realizing it. So we're going to practice not doing it. Let's look at some examples, shall we? So the first, we're just going to look at recognizing plagiarism. So I've got a text in your slideshow called The Hungry Venus Flytrap, or it's just called on the slideshow Venus Flytrap. Take a few minutes to read over that text. Then we'll look at some different ways students have used this information in their own writing. At this point, I do recommend that you pause this video and read over that text. Okay, this is Joe. Joe is writing a report about the Venus flytrap for school. One of his sources is the article you just read. Your job is to tell when he is plagiarizing. Ready? All right, here's one sentence. The Venus flytrap attracts insects by displaying a red, lush-looking interior, tricking them into thinking it's a flower. Is this plagiarism or not plagiarism? Take a moment to pause this video, look at the text, and decide before hearing the answer. It is plagiarism. Let's compare Joe's writing with the article. So notice that Joe said the Venus flytrap attracts insects by displaying a red, lush-looking interior, tricking them into thinking it's a flower. The text says, first they attract insects by displaying a red, lush-looking interior, tricking them into thinking it's a flower. Joe copied almost an entire sentence, word for word, into his own report. Definitely plagiarism. Let's look at another example. In The Hungry Venus Flytrap, Bug Lover explains that the Venus flytrap has a bright red center, which makes it look like a flower. This makes insects attracted to it. Is this plagiarism or not plagiarism? Take a moment to pause the video and look at the text to get your answer before hearing it said aloud. It is not plagiarism. Joe put the information from the article into his own words. He also gave credit to the author, so this is not plagiarism. Good job, Joe. Here's another. This plant happens to grow in dirt that is too low in nitrogen to meet its needs. To make up for that lack of nitrogen, it gets it by eating insects. Plagiarism or not plagiarism? Take a moment to pause this video, look at the text, and decide on your answer before hearing it read aloud. It is plagiarism. Oh, Joe. Joe said this plant happens to grow in dirt that is too low in nitrogen to meet its needs. To make up for that lack of nitrogen, it gets it by eating insects. The text says, Venus flytraps happen to grow in soil that is too low in nitrogen to meet their needs. To make up for that lack of nitrogen, they get it by consuming insects. Just changing a few words from the original sentence without crediting the author, still plagiarism. How about this one? The Venus flytrap needs to eat insects because they contain nitrogen, which is a nutrient the plant needs and can't get from the soil it grows in. Plagiarism or not plagiarism? Take a moment to pause the video, look at your text, and decide for yourself before hearing the answer read aloud. It's not plagiarism, sort of. Joe definitely used his own words this time, but he still hasn't given the author credit for the information. So this is better. The Venus flytrap needs to eat insects because they contain nitrogen, which is a nutrient the plant needs and can't get from the soil it grows in, according to Samantha Bug Lover. Much better. Okay, one more. According to Samantha Bug Lover, The jaws of the fly trap clamp shut in as little as 1/10 of a second, trapping the insect forever. Plagiarism or not plagiarism? Take a moment to pause the video, look at the text, and decide for yourself before the answer is read aloud to you. This is not plagiarism. In this case, Jo used the author's exact words, but he gave her credit for it and put quotation marks around the words that came right from her article. Now that you know what plagiarism is, you're going to practice some ways to avoid it. So here are some ways to summarize. Basically, there are 3 ways to avoid plagiarism in your own writing. 1, summarizing. Putting general information you learned from your sources in your own words and giving the author credit. Paraphrasing. Restating more specific points in a way that's closer to how the author wrote it and giving the author credit. Or direct quotes. Copying some of the author's exact words but putting them in quotes and giving the author credit. Let's practice the first one. Putting things in your own words, also known as summarizing. Remember when Jo was writing about fly traps in soil, how at first he just copied the passage? Let's look at that again. This plant happens to grow in dirt that is too low in nitrogen to meet its needs. To make up for that lack of nitrogen, it gets it by eating insects, versus Venus flytraps happen to grow in soil that is too low in nitrogen to meet their needs. To make up for that lack of nitrogen, they get it by consuming insects. The problem is that Jo looked at the article while he was writing. It helps if you don't do that. Instead, he should read a section of the article first. Then get the article completely out of sight. Next, without looking at the article, he should think about the passage he just read. The plant eats bugs because it needs something that the dirt doesn't have. Was it nitrates? Oxygen? And explain it to someone else. Okay, so Venus flytraps eat bugs, right? And they do this because they need something. I think it's oxygen, and the dirt they grow in doesn't have enough oxygen, and I guess bugs do, so they eat them. Then he should write his explanation on his own paper. The words should sound like Jo, not like the article. Venus flytraps eat bugs because they need oxygen, and the dirt they grow in doesn't have enough of it. Eating the bugs helps them get the extra oxygen they need. And only after this is done, Jo can check back to the original article to make sure he got the information right. Venus flytraps eat bugs because they need oxygen, and the dirt they grow in doesn't have enough of it. Eating the bugs helps them get the extra oxygen they need. This is when he'll realize that it's nitrogen, not oxygen, that the flytraps need, so he can fix that. So, to avoid plagiarism, follow these steps. 1, first read the passage carefully. Don't take any notes, just read. 2, look away from the text. Turn the paper over to minimize your computer screen. Think about what it says, then talk through it out loud in your own words. 3, still looking away, draft your own paragraph. It should sound like you. 4, go back to the text and check to make sure you got the facts. One last thing before we move on. Even though you summarize ideas in the text in your writing, you still need to give credit to the source where you learned it. Let's see how Jo does it. He starts with the paragraph he just wrote. Venus flytraps eat bugs because they need nitrogen, and the dirt they grow in doesn't have enough of it. Eating the bugs helps them get the extra nitrogen they need. Then adds a few extra words to tell us where that stuff came from. In The Hungry Venus Flytrap, Samantha Bug Lover explains that Venus flytraps eat bugs because they need nitrogen, and the dirt they grow in doesn't have enough of it. Eating the bugs helps them get the extra nitrogen they need. Here's another way to do it. Venus flytraps eat bugs because they need nitrogen, and the dirt they grow in doesn't have enough of it, according to Samantha Bug Lover in The Hungry Venus Flytrap. Eating the bugs helps them get the extra nitrogen they need. You're going to determine whether Jo plagiarized information about how the Venus flytrap catches its prey in assignment 12. The information can be found in this section. So you are going to either pause the video now to go on to assignment 12, or just know that assignment 12 is going to require this part of the text in The Hungry Venus Flytrap. This sheet will show you more ways to do this yourself. We will use this sheet in the next few exercises when we learn about paraphrasing and quoting. So this is another worksheet that is linked in the weekly slideshow for lessons and assignments. All right, finally, exercise 3 is paraphrasing. Let's take a few minutes to read The Daily Life of a Sumo Wrestler. Now this is a text that's also linked in the slideshow that you should pause this video and read before continuing on with the lesson. Now meet Eva. Eva is supposed to create a presentation about sumo wrestlers, and this article is one of her sources. One of the things she wants to include is a list of things the wrestlers do in their training sessions. In this article, the author has already given a good list, so she's just going to paraphrase that. So she'll use the same idea, but she won't use the same exact language word for word as the article. Here's how the two compare. The article. The wrestlers stretch, then do hard physical training for 3 to 4 solid hours. Their regimen includes drills, weightlifting, and going head-to-head in their own wrestling matches. What Eva wrote. A typical training session or typical training can last up to 4 hours and involves stretching, drills, weightlifting, and practice matches. Eva didn't copy the exact words, but the idea is pretty much the same thing. Because the idea really came straight from that article, Eva should give credit to the author. According to writer Jason Morey, a typical training can last up to 4 hours and involve stretching, drills, weightlifting, and practice matches. Or, in his article, The Daily Life of a Sumo Wrestler, Jason Morey explains that a typical training can last up to 4 hours and involve stretching, drills, weightlifting, and practice matches. Now you try it. Look at Eva's sample sentences in assignment 12 and determine if she plagiarized or not. This is a good opportunity to pause the video, to move on to assignment 12, and answer the questions based on the text, or you can just continue on in this lesson. This sheet will show you more ways to do this yourself. So again, refer to that worksheet in your slideshow. Now, what if you do want to use the writer's exact words? Exercise 4, using direct quotes. Eva really likes that last line of the sumo article exactly as it was written. She can't just copy it though, right, Eva? In other words, she can't do this. Sumo wrestlers see their work as a great honor, which is why every day they are renewing their commitment to a tradition that is anything but simple. These aren't Eva's words. They were lovingly crafted by Jason Morey, renewing their commitment to a tradition that is anything but simple. Here's what she does instead. Sumo wrestlers see their work as a great honor, which is why every day they are, in the words of writer Jason Morey, renewing their commitment to a tradition that is anything but simple. Now you're going to evaluate whether Eva plagiarized sentences about why sumo wrestlers wait until noon to eat. The information can be found in this section.